I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Right now, your body is quietly working to bring you back into balance, restoring calm to systems that have been stretched too far. You'll discover what stress is actually doing inside you and understand why rest is the most powerful medicine your mind has ever known. Welcome to Sleepy Mind Science. Wherever you are right now, perhaps lying in the quiet dark, your thoughts still moving but growing softer, allow yourself to simply be here. We'll journey through 100 psychology facts about stress and anxiety, from the ancient alarm system inside your brain that hasn't changed in millions of years, to the chemistry of calm, to the moment your nervous system finally lets go. This thoughtful journey, known the science of the anxious mind, builds bridges between searching souls who lie awake too long. A gentle subscribe, like, or quiet share creates a pathway for more tired minds to find this place and brings us closer to protecting this sanctuary. One sleepy soul at a time. Your presence here matters deeply. Let yourself settle completely here. Feel your jaw unclench, your breath deepen naturally. You can let these thoughts drift past without holding them. Sense that soothing heaviness enveloping you, like your consciousness slowly dimming its brightness. Thoughts dissolving into the peaceful fog of approaching sleep, safe and undisturbed. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where memories rest safely in gentle darkness. Let your mind merge with infinite peace. And now we begin. Stress is not a modern invention. It is one of the oldest systems in the human body. A finely tuned survival mechanism that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. When your brain senses danger, real or imagined, it sets off a cascade of chemical signals that prepare your body to fight, flee, or freeze. This response kept your ancestors alive on the open savanna. The system was never designed for deadlines, social pressures, or a phone screen glowing at midnight. And yet here we are, carrying ancient hardware into a world it was never built to navigate. Understanding this is the first step toward compassion for yourself. You are not broken. You are simply human, running an old program in a new world. Inside your brain, buried deep beneath conscious thought, sits a small cluster of neurons shaped like an almond. It is called the amygdala, and it is your internal alarm, constantly scanning your surroundings for anything that might threaten you. When it detects something, it categorizes as dangerous. It fires a signal to the rest of the brain in milliseconds, far faster than any conscious thought can form. This is why your heart begins to pound before you even know why. The amygdala does not wait for permission. It acts first and explains later. And in people who have lived with anxiety for a long time, this alarm is simply set to a higher sensitivity than average. Perceiving more, feeling more, absorbing more. That is not a flaw. It is a system doing its job with great care. Cortisol is sometimes called the stress hormone, but that name undersells its complexity. Cortisol is a master regulator. In the morning, it rises to help wake you up, sharpen your focus, and prepare you for the day ahead. During stress, it spikes to provide quick energy and heighten awareness. The difficulty arises when cortisol never fully falls. Research has found that prolonged elevation of cortisol sustained over months or years rather than hours, can affect the volume of the hippocampus and interfere with memory formation. The brain is responsive to the chemistry it swims in, which is precisely why supporting rest and recovery matters as much as it does. This is a gentle reminder that the body listens to the life we lead, and rest, consistent and unhurried, speaks back to ourselves in ways science is only beginning to fully measure. Right now, without any effort from you, two vast systems inside your body are finding their balance. One is built for action. It accelerates your heartbeat, sharpens your senses, and prepares your muscles to move. The other is built for rest. It slows the breath, settles digestion, and invites the body to repair itself. Together, they form the autonomic nervous system, the quiet infrastructure of everything you feel. In a healthy system, these two branches move like tides, one rising as the other falls. Chronic anxiety can keep the action branch elevated far longer than the body can comfortably sustain. But knowing this system exists, naming it, understanding that it has a built-in return to calm, is itself a kind of relief. You are not helpless inside your own body. The pathway back was always there, running from your brainstem all the way down through your chest and into your abdomen is one of the longest and most significant nerves in the human body. It is called the vagus nerve, and it is the primary highway of your calming system. The tone of this nerve, meaning how well and how efficiently it functions, is directly connected to how quickly you recover from stress. People with higher vagal tone tend to return to baseline more quickly after difficult experiences, feel calmer between challenges, and experience fewer anxiety symptoms overall. What makes this particularly hopeful is that vagal tone is not fixed. Simple practices, slow breathing, gentle movement, and even humming can measurably strengthen it over time. Your body already holds the tools for its own calming. Tonight, simply resting here, you are using one of them. Anxiety is not the same as stress. Though they often travel together, stress is generally a response to something identifiable. A conversation, a deadline, a sudden sound. Anxiety tends to persist even when the identifiable cause has passed. The nervous system remains on alert, scanning for danger that may not come. This is not a character weakness. It is not evidence of fragility or failure. The brain has simply learned to stay prepared. And sometimes that preparation was the very thing that kept you going through difficult seasons of your life. Understanding this does not make anxiety comfortable, but it does make it a little less frightening. And less frightening is always a step closer to rest. When stress activates the body, blood moves away from the digestive system and toward the large muscles of the arms and legs, preparing for movement. This is why many people feel nausea or stomach discomfort during moments of high anxiety. The gut, which has its own extensive nervous system, is temporarily placed on hold. What makes this even more fascinating is that the gut and brain communicate in both directions, not simply from brain to gut, but back again. The gut produces a remarkable 90% of the body's serotonin. Though this gut-produced serotonin primarily regulates digestion rather than crossing directly into the brain, the connection to mood runs through different pathways: the vagus nerve, the immune system, and the microbiome's broader influence on brain chemistry The relationship between your stomach and your state of mind is real, and ongoing research continues to reveal just how intimate it truly is. Consider for a moment what happens inside your body the instant it perceives something threatening. The amygdala fires. The hypothalamus activates the adrenal glands. Adrenaline floods the bloodstream. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing quickens. Glucose surges to your muscles for immediate energy. All of this unfolds before the thinking part of your brain has had a chance to assess whether the threat was real. That thinking part, the prefrontal cortex, simply receives the news a little later. Evolution built speed into this system deliberately. In the ancient world, a moment of hesitation could cost everything. What you carry tonight is that same precise and loyal system, now responding at full intensity to things that carry no physical danger at all. It is working exactly as designed. You simply live in a world that has moved faster than the design could follow. The part of your brain most responsible for clear thinking, planning, and emotional regulation is called the prefrontal cortex. It is the part of you that can pause before reacting, that can hold a difficult feeling without immediately acting on it. During high stress or anxiety, the balance of activity in the brain shifts. The prefrontal cortex grows quieter. The alarm regions grow louder. This is why it can feel nearly impossible to think clearly when anxiety is high. You are not failing at logic. The physiological balance of your brain has temporarily shifted, prioritizing speed over reflection, survival over subtlety. And this shift is reversible. Rest restores it. Breath supports it. Time allows it. The clearer mind you remember is not gone. It is waiting just beneath the surface for the alarm to soften. Chronic stress has measurable effects on the length of telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes that work much like the plastic tips on shoelaces, keeping the strands intact. As cells divide over time, telomeres naturally shorten. Research published in leading journals has found that individuals reporting higher chronic stress show shorter telomere lengths compared to peers of similar age, suggesting that psychological stress may contribute to faster biological aging at the cellular level. This is a gentle reminder that the body listens to the life we lead, and rest, consistent and unhurried, speaks back to our cells in ways science is only beginning to measure, not as a warning, but as an invitation. Every quiet night matters. Every return to stillness is, in its own small way, an act of renewal. Sleep and anxiety exist in a deeply reciprocal relationship. Poor sleep worsens anxiety, and anxiety disrupts sleep, creating a cycle that can feel difficult to interrupt. Research from the University of California, Berkeley, found that even a single night of poor sleep significantly increased anxiety levels the following day. With activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the brain's anxiety-regulating center, sharply reduced, the researchers found that deep non-REM sleep appeared particularly important for emotional regulation, allowing the brain to essentially recalibrate overnight. Sleep is not passive rest. During the night, your brain is actively working to restore your emotional equilibrium, processing the weight of the day, filing what matters, and gently releasing what does not. Every night of rest is the nervous system doing its most careful and compassionate work. The word anxiety comes from the Latin root anxious, meaning troubled or uneasy. The ancient Romans had words for this experience because humans have always felt it. Anxiety is not a modern pathology invented by a stressed contemporary world. Archaeological and historical records suggest that fear, worry, and dread have been documented in human writing for thousands of years. From ancient Mesopotamian texts to the writings of Greek physicians, what has changed is not the existence of anxiety, but the frequency and constancy of the triggers. The human nervous system was designed for periods of rest between threats. It was not designed for continuous, low-level arousal sustained around the clock. You are not weaker than previous generations. You are simply living in a world that gives the alarm system far fewer chances to stand down. Adrenaline, the hormone released during acute stress, has a half-life in the blood of roughly 2 to 3 minutes. This means that within about 15 minutes of the stressor ending, adrenaline levels are naturally returning toward baseline. Cortisol, the slower-acting hormone, takes longer, with a half-life of roughly 60 to 90 minutes. This is why the physical aftermath of an anxiety episode, the lingering tension, the unsettled feeling, the sense of unease that seems to have no clear edge, can persist well after the triggering event has passed. Your chemistry is catching up. The feelings are real, but they are also chemical, and they do eventually settle. Knowing this, that the feeling has a biological arc and a natural endpoint, can make it slightly easier to simply wait it out, breathing gently, without needing to solve anything. The body's primary stress hormone pathway runs through a system called the HPA axis, connecting the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal glands in a coordinated cascade. When the brain detects a threat, this system activates within seconds, releasing cortisol to support the response. Once the threat passes, cortisol is designed to feed back to the brain and signal the system to stand down. In people experiencing chronic stress, this feedback loop sometimes becomes less efficient. The off signal arrives more slowly, or is not fully received. Understanding the architecture of this system has guided much of the most thoughtful recent research into anxiety treatment and resilience. The body has a mechanism for returning to calm built into its very design. Supporting that mechanism is the quiet work of rest, Einrhythm, and care. Muscle tension is one of the most consistent physical signs of chronic anxiety, and yet one of the most frequently unnoticed. When the body expects danger, muscles throughout the body contract slightly, preparing for movement. Over time, this low-grade contraction becomes the baseline, so habitual that the person carrying it no longer recognizes it as tension. They simply believe this is what their body feels like. Commonly affected areas include the jaw, neck, shoulders, and the muscles surrounding the eyes. Research in psychophysiology has found that when people with anxiety learn to systematically release these muscle groups, overall anxiety scores decrease measurably. The body holds what the mind has not yet processed. Releasing the body is, sometimes, the most direct and compassionate route into the mind. Your brain produces its own anxiety-reducing chemistry, a neurotransmitter called GABA, which stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid. is the primary calming signal in the central nervous system. It works by slowing neural activity, quieting the electrical noise of an overactive brain. The brain produces GABA naturally in response to certain conditions, including slow breathing, physical rest, and deep sleep. Research continues to explore how lifestyle supports endogenous GABA production. The brain is not simply a passive recipient of anxiety. It is also, constantly and without fanfare, working to restore equilibrium. It has been doing this your entire life. Rest helps it do that work more fully. And tonight, simply by being still, you are already helping. Social connection has a measurable effect on the stress response. Research consistently shows that the presence of a trusted person, or even just the clear perception of social support, reduces cortisol levels during stressful experiences. A landmark study found that people who held a trusted partner's hand during a threatening experience showed significantly reduced activity in stress-related brain regions compared to those who faced the same experience alone. A hormone called oxytocin, released during warm social contact, plays a key role in this. It has been shown to reduce amygdala reactivity and lower the overall alarm level of the nervous system. Human beings are not designed to manage stress in isolation. The nervous system evolved in community, and it finds its greatest ease there. You are not meant to carry this alone. Breathing is one of the few autonomic functions that can be consciously controlled, which makes it a uniquely direct path into the nervous system. When you slow your breathing and extend the exhale longer than the inhale, you activate the parasympathetic system. This is not a metaphor. It is a direct physiological pathway. Research from Stanford University, published in 2023, found that different breathing patterns produce measurably different effects on brain state and mood. A practice called cyclic sighing, 2 inhales followed by 1 long extended exhale, produced the greatest reduction in anxiety and the greatest improvement in mood of any breathing pattern tested. The exhale, it appears, is where the nervous system finds its most direct path toward calm. Your breath is a direct line to your own biology. It is always available. It costs nothing, and it never runs out. Anticipatory anxiety is the experience of feeling anxious about something that has not yet happened and may never happen at all. Brain imaging studies have found that imagining a feared situation activates many of the same neural circuits involved in real threat perception. The amygdala responds to vivid mental imagery with patterns that overlap substantially with its response to direct experience. This is why worry is not merely unpleasant. It is physiologically effortful. Consuming the same resources the body would use facing an actual challenge, the mind is extraordinarily capable of generating its own difficulty, but it is equally capable of generating its own peace. The same imagination that rehearses catastrophe can rottle them. Gently redirected, rehearse calm. And that redirection begins with choosing, simply, not to follow every thought to its darkest conclusion. The relationship between physical movement and anxiety relief is one of the most consistently replicated findings in mental health research. Moderate aerobic activity, raising the heart rate for 20 to 30 minutes, has been shown to reduce anxiety symptoms comparably to certain medications in mild to moderate cases. The mechanisms are multiple. Endorphins rise, a protein called BDNF, which supports the health and growth of neurons. Increases. Cortisol regulation improves over time. And there is something else at play. By voluntarily increasing heart rate and breathing during exercise, the body learns that these sensations are not automatically signals of danger. Over time, the anxious interpretation of physical arousal begins to ease. Movement teaches the nervous system that it can be activated and returns safely to calm. Every time, without fail, cognitive behavioral therapy remains one of the most extensively studied psychological treatments for anxiety. Its core premise is that anxious thoughts are not accurate reports of reality but rather interpretations, and that those interpretations can be identified, examined, and gently revised over time. A large body of research has shown that this process produces lasting changes not only in anxiety symptoms, but in measurable brain activity. Studies using functional MRI have shown that successful treatment is associated with reduced amygdala reactivity and increased engagement from the prefrontal cortex, the same neural balance that anxiety disrupts. The mind, tended gently over time, can reshape its own circuitry. This may be the most quietly hopeful finding in modern neuroscience, that the brain which learned to worry can, with patience and the right conditions, learn something else entirely. Cortisol follows a natural daily rhythm. In a healthy system, it peaks in the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking, helping mobilize energy for the day ahead. Throughout the afternoon and evening, it gradually declines, reaching its lowest point in the middle of the night. Chronic stress can flatten this curve, reducing the morning peak and elevating the nighttime baseline, which is one reason why chronically stressed people often feel tired in the morning but restless at night. Research has found that a disrupted cortisol rhythm is associated with fatigue, mood instability, and impaired immune function. One of the most effective and accessible ways to restore this rhythm is consistent sleep and wake timing, allowing the body's internal clock to anchor itself and gently regulate the cycle back toward its natural shape. The immune system and the stress response share a chemical language. During acute stress, certain immune functions are temporarily heightened, an evolutionary preparation for possible injury. But chronic stress suppresses immune function over time, reducing the effectiveness of the body's natural defenses. Research published across decades of psychoneuroimmunology has documented this relationship carefully. The field now understands that psychological states and immune states are not separate systems managing separate problems. They are deeply integrated, influencing each other continuously and bidirectionally. Reducing chronic stress is not simply a matter of feeling better. It is also a matter of physical health, in the most concrete biological terms. What is good for the mind turns out, again and again, to be good for the body as well. When the mind is not focused on a specific external task, a set of interconnected brain regions becomes active. This is sometimes called the default mode network, and it is associated with self-referential thinking, imagining past events, and projecting into possible futures. Research has found that people with anxiety tend to show increased activity in this network at rest, and the content of their idle mental activity tends to be more negatively oriented, dwelling on potential threats rather than neutral or positive possibilities. Mindfulness-based practices, appear to reduce unnecessary default mode activity over time, creating a quieter, less future-oriented mental baseline. The mind, when not directed, tends to wander, teaching it to wander more gently. To rest more fully in the present is the quiet work of a lifetime. And tonight is a good night to begin. Spending time in nature has measurable effects on anxiety and stress physiology. Research that began in Japan and has since spread across dozens of countries has confirmed that time among trees reduces cortisol levels, lowers blood pressure, decreases heart rate, and reduces self-reported anxiety. A meta-analysis published in recent years confirmed these effects across diverse populations and environments. One proposed mechanism involves phytoncides, airborne compounds released by trees that appear to gently influence the autonomic nervous system. Another involves the simple reduction of artificial noise and artificial light. The natural world carries a medicine that was here long before any pharmacy. Your nervous system recognizes it. Even if daily life has made it easy to forget, perhaps that is why this quiet darkness, this simple stillness, feels like something you have always known. Let's pause here and notice your body. As you breathe out slowly, appreciate each tiny cell inside. Trillions of processes working in silence. Heart beating, lungs expanding, brain tending to the day's unfinished business, all without your command. Notice the gentle sensations on your skin, in your muscles, along your spine. Your mind has been carrying a great weight. And right now, in this moment, you don't have to carry anything at all. You are a complete ecosystem, diverse, self-balancing, endlessly capable of returning to calm. And tonight, every part of you is allowed to rest. Now, we continue. Regular mindfulness practice has been studied with increasing scientific rigor over the past 2 decades. And the findings are consistent. People who practice regularly report reduced anxiety. And brain imaging shows decreased amygdala reactivity and measurably increased thickness of the prefrontal cortex over time. A landmark study from Harvard found visible differences in gray matter density after just 8 weeks of mindfulness-based stress reduction training. These were not subjective impressions. They were measurable structural changes in the brain. Mindfulness works, in part, by training attention. The anxious mind tends to merge with its thoughts, treating every worried thought as a command or a truth. Mindfulness creates a small but meaningful gap between the thought and the reaction, and that gap, with practice, grows wider. The amygdala stores emotionally significant memories with particular intensity and durability. This is part of what makes anxiety so persistent. Experiences associated with fear are tagged in memory with unusual vividness because the brain evolved to remember what was dangerous. Remembering kept your ancestors safe. But this same mechanism can lead the brain to treat historical threats as present ones, reactivating stress responses in response to cues that merely resemble the original experience. The process of updating these memories is called reconsolidation. Research over the past decade has found that when memories are gently recalled in a safe, calm context, they briefly become open to revision. This may be one reason why talking about difficult experiences in a warm, supported environment can gradually reduce their emotional charge. The memory remains, but its grip can soften. Many people feel most alone in the very moments when they are surrounded by others. The experience of social anxiety, that quiet dread of being seen and found, wanting, is one of the most deeply studied emotional experiences in psychology. Brain imaging research has found that socially anxious individuals show heightened amygdala responses to faces expressing negative emotion, and that their predictions about how others perceive them tend to be significantly more negative than what observers actually report. Studies where people estimated others' reactions and then compared those estimates to reality consistently found a large gap. We judge ourselves far more harshly than anyone else is watching. Others are, most of the time, too occupied with their own inner experience to be the audience we fear they are. The body's inflammatory response is connected to psychological stress in ways that research is continuing to map. When the stress response activates, it releases small proteins called pro-inflammatory cytokines, which signal the immune system to prepare for potential tissue damage. In the short term, this is protective. Research has found associations between chronic anxiety and modestly elevated inflammatory markers in the blood, a finding that has been replicated across multiple studies. Though the relationship is complex and still being carefully understood, what does seem clear is that the same physiological systems governing stress and immunity are deeply entangled, each influencing the other in ways that make the case for rest more compelling with every passing year of research. Reducing chronic stress is not simply emotional work. It reaches all the way into the body's quietest cellular conversations. There is a concept in nervous system research called the window of tolerance. It describes the zone of activation within which a person can function most effectively, processing experience without being overwhelmed by it. When stress pushes the system too far above this window, the person feels panicked, reactive, flooded. When it pushes too far below, the person feels numb, shut down, disconnected. Within the window, the nervous system can hold difficult experiences without being overtaken by them. Chronic anxiety often narrows this window significantly. Small triggers produce large responses, but the window is not fixed. Therapeutic support, somatic practices, sleep, and consistent warmth in relationships all help widen it over time. The goal is not to eliminate all response. It is to expand the range within which you can remain fording, fully and safely. Yourself, the gut microbiome, the vast community of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms living in the digestive tract, communicates with the brain through multiple pathways, including the vagus nerve, the immune system, and the production of compounds that influence neurochemistry. Disruptions to the gut microbiome have been associated with increased anxiety-like behavior in animal models, and early human studies suggest that microbiome health may have modest effects on psychological well-being. A large-scale review, published in 2024, found significant correlations between microbiome diversity and self-reported psychological well-being across diverse populations. The gut is not merely a digestive organ. It is, in a very real sense, part of your body's larger emotional infrastructure and what you do for your overall health, including sleep, tends to support it. Caffeine is among the most widely consumed psychoactive substances in the world, and its relationship with anxiety is direct and well documented. It works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain, the receptors that signal tiredness and invite sleep. By blocking them, caffeine keeps the brain in a more activated state. For nervous systems already running at high alert, this heightened activation can tip into anxious territory, particularly in higher doses. Research has also found that caffeine increases cortisol release and can amplify physical anxiety symptoms in sensitive individuals. The relationship is dose-dependent and varies significantly between people, but it is real. For some nervous systems, reducing caffeine intake is one of the most immediate and meaningful changes available. The body often knows this before the mind is willing to admit it. During REM sleep, the brain replays emotionally significant experiences from the day, but it does so in a neurochemical environment that is notably lower in noradrenaline, the brain's primary stress chemical. This allows the emotional content of memories to be processed and consolidated without the full physiological charge of the original experience. The memory remains, but the raw emotional intensity is gently reduced. This is why events that feel overwhelming in the evening often feel more manageable by morning. Not because anything changed in the world, but because the brain had the chance to process them in a quieter chemical space. Sleep does not erase difficulty. It holds it differently. And in holding it differently, it makes it more possible to carry. Generalized anxiety involves a persistent and wide-ranging tendency toward worry that does not attach itself to one specific fear, but moves fluidly across many concerns. Research has found that individuals who experience this tend to show altered activity in regions involved in conflict monitoring and error detection. The anxious brain is, in a sense, running an overactive error detection program, constantly flagging potential problems and seeking resolution. One of the most meaningful shifts in understanding anxiety has been the recognition that the goal of treatment is not the elimination of uncertainty, but the gradual development of a capacity to hold it without requiring immediate resolution. Uncertainty cannot be dissolved by worry, but it can, with practice and patience, be held more gently. This is a skill, and like all skills, it grows with time. In clinical trials for anxiety treatments, responses to inactive treatments, what researchers call the placebo effect, tend to be particularly substantial. This is not evidence that anxiety is imaginary. Rather, it is evidence of the brain's extraordinary capacity to regulate its own state when given expectation. Attention and care. Researchers found that this effect can occur even when people are told they are receiving an inactive treatment, suggesting that ritual, attentiveness, and the quality of the relationship in which care is given carry genuine biological weight. Your expectations shape your physiology. The story you hold about what is happening inside you matters more than most people ever realize. The nervous system responds to meaning as readily as it responds to medicine. A therapeutic approach called acceptance and commitment therapy works differently from traditional cognitive approaches to anxiety. Rather than attempting to correct or argue with anxious thoughts, it invites the person to acknowledge them without judgment, while continuing to move toward what genuinely matters to them. Researchers found this approach comparably effective to other established therapies for many anxiety conditions, with particular benefits for individuals who have found traditional thought challenging, frustrating, or ineffective. At its center is a skill called psychological flexibility. The ability to hold uncomfortable internal experiences without being controlled by them, while continuing to act in alignment with deeply held values. This is a skill that can be learned, and like all things worth learning, it improves with practice. Gentle physical touch, including self-directed touch, has measurable calming effects on the nervous system. It stimulates a class of nerve fibers called C-tactile afferents, which sends signals to regions of the brain involved in social bonding and self-regulation. A practice of placing a hand gently over the heart or quietly holding one's own hands has been studied as part of self-compassion interventions. Research has found that this simple act reduces cortisol levels and increases feelings of safety, particularly for individuals who have limited access to social connection. The body does not always require the touch to come from another person. Safety has a physical language, and the nervous system speaks it with remarkable fluency. You carry the capacity to soothe yourself. It has always been there. The amygdala is involved not only in detecting fear, but in the gradual process of learning that something previously feared is no longer dangerous. This process, called extinction learning, is active and requires repeated experience of the feared cue in the absence of negative consequence. Research has found that extinction does not erase the original fear memory, but creates a new and competing memory that can, over time, come to dominate. This is the neurological basis for exposure-based approaches to anxiety. One of the most reliable methods found in decades of research. Importantly, extinction is context-sensitive. A fear that quiets in one environment may reappear in another. This is why the work of building safety in the nervous system is gradual, ongoing, and deeply worth the patience it asks for. Perfectionism and anxiety share deep neurological roots. When the gap between actual performance and an internal standard is perceived as large, the alarm system activates. The brain registers the failure to meet its own standard as a kind of threat. Researchers view, in quote, how research has found that a focus on failure and self-criticism, rather than a healthy striving for excellence, predicts anxiety severity more reliably than almost any other psychological variable. The inner critic and the anxious voice are often the same system, running different programs in the same moment. Quieting one tends to quiet the other, not by lowering standards, but by changing the relationship to imperfection, by allowing the self to be human, incomplete, still learning, and still entirely worthy of rest. Music has demonstrable effects on physiological stress markers. Research across many studies has found that listening to slow, calming music, particularly music with a tempo below 60 beats per minute, reduces cortisol levels, lowers heart rate, and decreases self-reported anxiety. A meta-analysis published in 2024, synthesizing data from dozens of randomized controlled trials, confirmed music's consistent anxiolytic effects across both clinical and non-clinical populations. The mechanism likely involves multiple pathways, including the auditory cortex's influence on limbic structures, the entrainment of heart rate to musical tempo, and the activation of the brain's reward system through melody and familiarity. The lullaby is not merely custom. It is neuroscience in its most ancient and intuitive form, and it has been working quietly and faithfully for as long as humans have needed comfort. You're still here with me, thoughts still flickering like candlelight somewhere in the quiet. Just notice. Don't judge. Just notice where your mind is. We're exploring the very nature of anxiety together tonight. And the thing doing the listening right now is the same thing we have been talking about all along. Strange, beautiful, and perfectly calm. Let's drift onward together. The hormone oxytocin, released during moments of genuine warmth and connection, actively suppresses the stress response. Researchers found that oxytocin reduces amygdala reactivity and lowers cortisol levels in controlled settings. Interestingly, oxytocin receptors are found not only in the brain, but throughout the body, including the heart. Practices that reliably increase oxytocin include warm, physical contact, caring for animals, and acts of genuine kindness toward others. There is evidence that even the anticipation of a warm social interaction can begin to shift oxytocin levels upward before the interaction itself occurs. The nervous system responds to kindness, both given and received, as though it were a form of nourishment, because, in every biological sense, it is. Sleep deprivation changes the way the brain evaluates threat. Research has found that sleep-deprived individuals rate neutral or ambiguous situations as significantly more threatening than well-rested peers. They anticipate future negative events with greater intensity, and the prefrontal cortex's ability to modulate the amygdala drops substantially after even a single night of poor sleep. The anxious mind and the sleep-deprived mind overlap significantly. Their neurological signatures are remarkably similar. This is not a coincidence. It is a biological relationship. Protecting sleep, returning to it consistently and with care, is one of the most direct ways to influence the anxiety experience, not as a supplement to other approaches, but as the foundation upon which every other form of recovery depends. Interoception is the brain's ability to perceive signals arising from within the body, including heartbeat, breathing, digestion, and temperature. Research has found that the clarity with which a person can sense these internal states is closely related to emotional regulation. Some people with anxiety have heightened interoceptive sensitivity, noticing every subtle internal fluctuation and interpreting it as threatening. Others have suppressed interoception, disconnected from their own bodily signals in ways that can make stress harder to recognize and address. Therapeutic approaches that gently rebuild accurate interoception, practices like yoga, somatic therapy, and mindful breathing, appear to improve anxiety symptoms by helping the brain and body communicate more clearly, not more loudly, more clearly. There is a significant difference. The neuroscience of mood and anxiety is a field in motion. What researchers once described in simple terms, a deficit of one chemical, a surplus of another, has given way to a far more nuanced picture. Serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline, GABA. These are not levers to be pulled in isolation. They are players in an orchestra that the brain conducts differently in every person. A neurotransmitter like serotonin plays roles in circadian rhythm regulation, appetite, digestion, and pain processing, alongside its influence on mood. Medications that work on these systems tend to be helpful for many people, precisely because they support a complex system, not because they correct a single flaw. The science is becoming more humble, and in that humility, more honest and more hopeful. Gentle heat has a long relationship with the calming of the human nervous system. Research following populations with regular sauna habits over many years has found associations between frequent heat exposure and reduced cardiovascular risk, lower inflammatory markers, and improved self-reported psychological well-being. The mechanisms likely involve heat shock proteins, which have cellular protective effects, beta endorphin release, and the deep parasympathetic relaxation that sustained warmth appears to invite. The body's relationship with gentle heat is older than any formal medicine. It reaches back to fireside, to warm water, to the simple and ancient comfort of being warm when the world outside is cold. The nervous system recognizes this invitation, and tonight, wrapped in whatever warmth surrounds you here, you are already receiving it. There is a concept in stress research called allostatic load, which describes the cumulative wear on the body produced by chronic stress over time. The body is designed to adapt to stress through a process of maintaining stability through change, but repeated or prolonged activation of these adaptive systems eventually takes a toll. High allostatic load has been associated with accelerated biological aging, immune change, and metabolic shifts. Recent research has developed ways to measure this load directly using panels of biological markers, which has opened the possibility of tracking the physical impact of chronic stress over time. This framework reframes chronic stress, not as emotional fragility, but as a real and measurable physiological process. And it makes the case for rest, for recovery, for consistent gentleness toward yourself, in terms that are both concrete and compassionate. Animals under stress show physiological responses remarkably parallel to those in humans. Cortisol, adrenaline, and the autonomic stress pathways appear across mammalian species with striking consistency, suggesting these systems evolved very early in vertebrate history. Studies in animal models have been central to understanding anxiety pathways in the human brain. Research in these models has also revealed that early life stress can produce lasting changes in stress reactivity that persist well into adulthood. Similar findings have been replicated in human studies examining childhood adversity and adult anxiety. The nervous system carries its history. The patterns formed early can be durable, but research also consistently shows, and this is perhaps the most important finding of all, that these patterns are not permanent. With the right conditions, they can shift. There is a simple and well-studied strategy for managing anxious thinking called narrative self-distancing. It involves viewing a stressful experience from a slight psychological remove, perhaps imagining it happening to a friend rather than to yourself, or referring to yourself by name rather than as I. Research has found that this small shift in perspective reduces activity in emotional processing regions and increases engagement from regulatory regions during stressful recollection. It works not by suppressing emotion, but by creating a slightly different vantage point from which the experience can be held. The story you are living becomes, for a moment, a story you are watching, and from that position, it becomes possible to respond to it more thoughtfully than you could from inside it. Light exposure plays a direct role in cortisol and mood regulation through its effects on the body's internal clock, a small cluster of cells in the hypothalamus that synchronizes virtually every biological rhythm. Morning light exposure, particularly in the first hour after waking, has been found to lower evening cortisol levels, stabilize melatonin timing, and reduce symptoms of anxiety and low mood in multiple studies. Conversely, Bright artificial light in the evening can delay the body's natural rhythms, disrupt melatonin release, and elevate nighttime cortisol. Precisely the opposite of what the anxious brain needs at the end of a long day. Light is not merely a convenience. It is a biological signal with direct influence on the hormonal systems that govern stress and recovery. Halfway through our journey tonight, a pattern has begun to emerge. Anxiety is not a failure of character or a simple imbalance of a single chemical. It is a whole body, whole brain phenomenon shaped by memory, sleep, breath, movement, connection, light, and the accumulated weight of lived experience. Every fact we have explored points in the same direction. The anxious body is a body that has been working very hard, often for a very long time, to keep you safe. And what it needs now is not more effort. It needs permission to rest. That permission does not require a cure or a solution. It can come simply from understanding what has been happening and choosing, just for tonight, to stop working against it. You are allowed to let go now. Let each breath guide you to realize that time is yours, a separate stream that only you are living, while the rest of the world continues to move, expand, and change. This second, this very second that you are breathing and listening, is unique and entirely your own. Right now, your body does not have to perform for anyone. There is no evaluation happening. No one is watching. You are allowed to exist here without justification. Cherish this present moment, knowing that right now, your time belongs only to you. And we continue drifting. The brain's threat detection system is biased toward negativity by design. This negativity bias, the tendency to notice, wait, and remember negative experiences more heavily than positive ones, evolved to serve survival. An organism that underestimates danger fares worse than one that overestimates it. But in modern life, this bias means the anxious brain is running a filtered feed, constantly amplifying potential problems while discounting safety, warmth, and ease. Research has found that deliberately and repeatedly directing attention toward positive or neutral experiences can begin to counterbalance this bias over time. This is not wishful thinking. It is the intentional practice of training attention, which is itself a form of neural exercise. What we practice, we gradually become. And tonight, you are practicing stillness. During deep slow-wave sleep, the brain undergoes a process of metabolic cleanup. A waste removal network, called the glymphatic system, becomes most active during sleep, clearing metabolic byproducts that accumulate during waking hours. Research published in recent years has found that this system operates most efficiently during deep, non-REM sleep, the very sleep stage most commonly disrupted by chronic anxiety. This creates a compounding effect. Anxiety disrupts the deep sleep that allows the brain to clean itself, and the resulting buildup may, in turn, make anxiety harder to manage the following day. Rest is not passive. It is the body's most efficient cleaning cycle, and simply lying here, allowing yourself to drift, is already beginning to support that process. The practice of writing freely and honestly about stressful or emotionally difficult experiences, sometimes called expressive writing, has been studied extensively since researcher James Pennebaker first documented its effects in the 1980s, dozens of studies have since replicated and expanded his findings, showing that regular, expressive writing reduces anxiety symptoms, improves immune function, and reduces physician visits over time. The process appears to work by helping the brain construct a narrative around difficult experiences, moving them from raw emotional memory towards something more organized and meaningful. The act of translating internal experience into language invites the prefrontal cortex back into the story. It is one of the simplest and most quietly powerful forms of emotional regulation that anyone can access. Research in attachment science has documented a pathway called earned security. It describes how adults who experienced anxious or difficult attachment in their early years can develop stable, secure patterns of relating over time. Longitudinal research has found that meaningful therapeutic relationships, close and consistent adult friendships, and sustained self-reflective practice are all associated with movement toward earned security across the lifespan. The nervous system is not frozen in its earliest learned patterns. It is, as neuroscience has increasingly confirmed, capable of change at every age. The anxious patterns that formed in response to early experiences can, with the right relational conditions and enough time, be genuinely and meaningfully revised. Safety learned. Later in life is still safety. The nervous system accepts it with gratitude, regardless of when it arrives. Anxiety and creativity are frequently found together. People who experience higher anxiety often have more active imaginations, heightened sensory sensitivity, and greater capacity for associative thinking. The same neural systems that generate anxious ideation are also heavily involved in creative thought. This does not mean anxiety is useful or desirable in its chronic form, but it suggests that the anxious mind is not simply malfunctioning. It is a mind with particular strengths, particular depths, particular ways of moving through the world, that under the right conditions produce extraordinary things. The quieting of anxiety is not about silencing the mind. It is about giving a brilliant and hard-working mind the conditions it needs to rest. And rest is where the next great idea is very often waiting. Repetitive, negative thinking, the mental patterns of rumination and worry, activates the brain's default mode network, while simultaneously suppressing regions associated with present moment awareness. People in states of worry show reduced activity in the sensory cortices, meaning they are literally perceiving less of the present environment, while their internal mental activity accelerates. This explains the dissociative quality of high anxiety. The room around you seems to fade. Sound becomes distant. The body feels far away. Bringing attention back to the senses, to a sound, a texture, the weight of the blanket, the feeling of the breath, is not a distraction. It is a neurological reorientation toward the present. And the present, almost always, is safer than the mind's projections of the future. Yoga has accumulated a substantial body of research supporting its effects on anxiety. A comprehensive meta-analysis, published in 2024, reviewed over 80 randomized controlled trials and found consistent, moderate reductions in anxiety symptoms across diverse populations. The proposed mechanisms include vagal activation through breath practices, reduced cortisol through physical movement, improved interoceptive awareness, and the cultivation of present moment attention. Perhaps most meaningfully, yoga is a practice that belongs entirely to the person doing it. It can be done alone, in a quiet room, at any hour. For the anxious mind, the ownership of a calming practice is itself therapeutic. Something that reliably returns you to yourself is one of the most valuable things you can have. Gratitude practices have been studied in the context of anxiety with findings that reward patience. Simply writing gratitude lists has shown modest and inconsistent effects on its own. However, more intentional practices, those that involve identifying a specific benefit, acknowledging its source, and spending genuine time with the feeling rather than merely noting it, have shown more reliable associations with reduced anxiety and improved sleep quality. Research suggests gratitude may work in part by interrupting rumination, redirecting attention away from threat-focused thought toward experiences of sufficiency and connection. The anxious mind tells you what is wrong. Gratitude is one way of gently asking it what is also right, not to deny difficulty, but to restore a more complete picture of what is actually true. Diaphragmatic breathing, breathing that expands the belly rather than the chest, is mechanically distinct from the shallow chest breathing that typically accompanies stress. Diaphragmatic breath expands the lower lobes of the lungs, where the highest density of parasympathetic nerve endings are located. This directly stimulates the vagus nerve and initiates a calming response throughout the body. Researchers found that even 5 to 10 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing reduces salivary cortisol, decreases heart rate, and improves mood ratings. It is a practice available at any moment, in any position, at any hour. The fact that something so simple produces such measurable physiological effects says something profound about the body's own capacity for self-regulation. The tools are already inside you. They have been there all along. The relationship between diet and mental well-being has become an increasingly credible area of research. Diets high in ultra-processed foods have been associated with increased anxiety symptoms in multiple large studies. The Mediterranean dietary pattern, rich in vegetables, legumes, whole grains, fish, and olive oil, has been associated with lower prevalence of anxiety and depression across diverse populations. A randomized controlled trial found that dietary intervention produced significant improvements in mood and anxiety symptoms over a 12-week period. Researchers now speak of a field called nutritional psychiatry. What you eat does not merely fuel your body. It feeds the brain, supports the gut microbiome, and shapes the inflammatory environment within which your nervous system operates every day. What nourishes the body, in the broadest sense, nourishes the mind. The experience of awe, the emotional response to encountering something vast and beyond full comprehension, has been found to reduce anxiety and self-referential thinking. Researchers documented that awe activates the brain in ways that temporarily diminish the sense of individual self, a phenomenon researchers describe as the small self effect. In this state, personal worries become briefly contextualized within a much larger frame, and their urgency softens. Awe can be induced by nature, music, art, or simply reading about the scale of the universe. It does not require a mountaintop or an ocean. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through a fact encountered in the dark, in a room where someone chose to listen. Perhaps it is arriving right now. Temperature regulation is connected to the stress response in ways that are often overlooked. The body's core temperature naturally drops in the hours before sleep, a process mediated by peripheral blood vessels releasing heat through the skin. Anxiety elevates core body temperature through sustained muscle tension and increased metabolic rate, which can delay this natural cooling and push sleep further away. Research has found that warming the hands and feet facilitates the heat redistribution process and promotes sleep onset. A warm bath or shower, taken about an hour before sleep, has been found in multiple studies to reduce sleep onset time by a meaningful margin. The body knows how to settle into sleep. Sometimes, it simply needs a physical invitation to begin the process. Research on post-traumatic growth has expanded significantly over the past decade. While trauma causes genuine harm that should never be minimized, studies have found that many individuals, particularly those with access to social support and adequate time for processing, report meaningful positive changes in areas including personal strength, relational depth, and appreciation for daily life following adversity. This does not suggest that suffering is desirable. It suggests that the human nervous system has some capacity for integration and meaning-making that is separate from, and sometimes activated by, its most difficult experiences. The anxious history does not always define the whole story, and the person lying here tonight, who has carried what they have carried, is evidence of a resilience that is real. Deep in the brainstem, a network of neurons called the reticular activating system acts as a gatekeeper of consciousness, filtering the vast stream of sensory information arriving every second and deciding what reaches awareness. During anxiety, this filter shifts its priorities. Threat-relevant information is amplified. Neutral information is suppressed. This explains why the anxious person notices only the one face that looks disapproving, or hears only the sounds that might signal something wrong. The filter is doing its job. Its calibration has simply drifted toward danger. One of the quiet effects of sustained relaxation practice is the gradual recalibration of this system, a softening of the threat volume, and a restoration of access to the full and varied spectrum of what is actually available. We now understand that anxiety is not simply a brain disorder. It is an embodied, relational, contextual phenomenon shaped by genetics, early experience, culture, sleep, nutrition, movement, light, and the accumulated weight of lived experience. The most effective approaches to chronic anxiety address more than one of these dimensions at once. Research from integrative medicine has found that comprehensive approaches combining psychological support with sleep care, physical activity, and social connection consistently outperform single-approach strategies in long-term outcomes. There is no single switch to turn anxiety off. There is a gradual, multi-layered, deeply personal process of teaching the nervous system that it is, and that it will continue to be, safe enough. And that process begins, always, with this, with rest, with breath, with a willingness to be still. Compassion-focused therapy was developed specifically for individuals with high shame and self-criticism, traits that frequently accompany anxiety. It draws on evolutionary psychology, neuroscience, and contemplative philosophy to cultivate self-compassion as a genuine therapeutic tool. Research has found that this approach reduces shame, self-criticism, and anxiety while increasing feelings of warmth, safety, and self-acceptance. One of its core insights is that humans have evolved distinct emotional regulation systems, including one built for threat, one for achievement, and one for rest and soothing. Anxious individuals often operate with an overdeveloped threat system and an underdeveloped soothing one. The work of recovery, in this framework, is partly the work of learning to direct toward yourself the same warmth you would offer someone you genuinely love. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly those found in fatty fish, flaxseed, and certain algae, have been studied for their potential role in supporting emotional well-being. Multiple meta-analyses have found modest but consistent associations between omega-3 supplementation and reduced anxiety symptoms, particularly in populations with elevated baseline anxiety. The proposed mechanisms include reduction of neuroinflammation, support for the integrity of neuronal membranes, and possible influence on neurotransmitter signaling pathways. While omega-3s are not a replacement for psychological support, they represent one of the more evidence-supported nutritional approaches to anxiety, with a favorable safety profile and numerous additional health benefits. The brain is a fatty organ. What it is made of matters, and caring for its physical needs is a form of caring for your mind. Adrenaline is the chemical of movement, designed to propel the body into action. When the stress response fires and adrenaline floods the system, but the threat is social or existential rather than physical, the body is chemically prepared for movement that never comes. Research has found that physical movement, even a brisk 5-minute walk, can help metabolize excess adrenaline and reduce the residual physical tension of an anxiety response. This is one reason why exercise is so effective as an anxiety management tool, not because it resolves the underlying difficulty, but because it completes the cycle. The body's chemistry initiated, the alarm was sounded, movement provides the answer the body was prepared to give, and after movement, the rest becomes genuinely possible. Self-compassion has been studied extensively as both a psychological trait and a teachable practice. Research consistently finds that higher self-compassion predicts lower anxiety, lower shame, and greater emotional resilience under stress. Brain imaging studies have found that self-compassion practices activate neural pathways associated with receiving care and social warmth, producing measurable reductions in cortisol and amygdala reactivity, even when the practice is done alone, in silence, without another person present. This means the nervous system can receive the signal of safety from within itself. You do not need someone else to offer it. Though that helps too, you can offer it to yourself, in a quiet room, at this hour, with a hand placed gently over your own heart. Deep in the brain stem sits a small nucleus called the locus coeruleus, the primary source of the brain's noradrenaline, its alarm neurotransmitter. It has broad connections throughout the brain and plays a central role in arousal, attention, and the stress response. During anxiety, the locus coeruleus becomes highly active, creating the characteristic sense of heightened alertness and restless edginess. Research has found that this region is particularly sensitive to early life stress, and that early experiences of adversity can alter its baseline activity for years. Understanding this helps explain why anxiety can feel so automatic and so resistant to simple reasoning. It is not merely a thought pattern, it is a system with deep biological roots that can, over time, and, with the right conditions, find a quieter ground. Humming and sustained vocal toning have been found to stimulate the vagus nerve through vibration. The vibrations created in the chest and throat by sustained vocal sound appear to directly activate vagal nerve endings in the surrounding tissue. Researchers found that humming, even for just a few minutes, measurably increases heart rate variability, a key marker of parasympathetic nervous system activity and stress resilience. Contemplative traditions have practiced sustained toning for thousands of years. Modern neuroscience is now offering a physiological explanation for effects that practitioners have long known. The body can use its own voice to calm itself. You carry the instrument already, and you have been carrying it your whole life. The relationship between meaning and anxiety is profound. Research across decades has consistently found that a sense of purpose acts as a psychological buffer against anxiety and stress. People who feel their lives have direction and genuine significance show greater resilience under stress, lower rates of anxiety, and faster recovery from stressful events. Neuroscience has found that experiences of meaning activate the brain's reward circuits, producing feelings of calm engagement rather than threat-based activation. Finding meaning does not require grand gestures or dramatic realizations. It can be found in small, daily commitments, in relationships, in craft, in quiet acts of care for another person. It is a compass that the anxious mind can learn, slowly, to follow. And sometimes it is found in something as simple as choosing to rest. A cortical region called the insula, buried within the lateral sulcus of the brain, plays a central role in interoception, emotional awareness, and the integration of bodily signals with emotional meaning. Research has found that the insula is significantly involved in anxiety, particularly in the generation of anticipatory anxiety and the experience of social threat. Importantly, regular mindfulness practice has been associated with measurable changes in insular activity patterns over time. People who meditate regularly show both greater interoceptive clarity and reduced anxious interpretation of bodily signals. The insula appears to be one of the brain regions most responsive to contemplative training. It can learn, with practice, to hear the body's signals more accurately and interpret them more gently. Laughter activates the brain's reward system, reduces cortisol, and produces short-term improvements in immune markers. Research has documented that cortisol reduction occurs even in anticipation of watching a comedy, before any laughter has occurred. Laughter involves rhythmic contraction of the respiratory muscles and diaphragm, which appears to stimulate the vagus nerve through this mechanism. The social dimension of laughter matters equally. Shared laughter produces oxytocin and strengthens social bonds, both of which are directly calming to the nervous system. Humor is not an escape from the anxious experience. In modest and genuine doses, it is a physiological intervention, and the body, given the chance, knows how to use it. And so the central truth of this journey has become clear. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is a system of protection that has, in many cases, been running without adequate rest for far too long. Every biological mechanism we have explored tonight, the amygdala, the cortisol rhythm, the vagus nerve, the glymphatic system, the gut-brain connection, all of them point in the same direction, toward calm, toward rest, toward the conditions under which a nervous system can finally do what it was always designed to do in the stillness between alarms, not because the world has become safe, but because you have decided, tonight, that safety lives here. In this bed, in this quiet, in this breath, you are allowed to let go now. You might be feeling tired now. That is perfectly fine. Breathe slowly. Feel the cycles. Your heart beats. Your lungs expand and release. Your body temperature slowly falls, exactly as it was designed to do at this hour. You don't need to hold on to any of this knowledge. You don't need to fix anything tonight. You don't need to understand everything. Like a tide that pulls back without effort, you can simply release. Let everything unfold in its own perfect order. There is no hurry. There never was. We're almost there now. Rest is not the absence of productivity. It is its own form of intelligence. The brain at rest consolidates learning, processes emotion, clears metabolic waste, and rebuilds the neurochemical reserves spent during waking hours. Every hour of genuine rest is an act of renewal. Your nervous system does not need to solve every problem tonight. Research shows that sleep itself improves complex problem solving, sometimes providing clarity that waking thought could not reach. The mind works best when given permission to stop. The parasympathetic nervous system does not require your effort to activate. It responds to signals. Slow breath is one. Darkness is another. Warmth is another. You have already provided all three. Your biology is receiving the message right now, quietly and completely. Melatonin, the hormone of darkness, is already rising in your body. It signals every cell that night has arrived and rest is appropriate. You do not need to do anything to help this process along. It is already well underway. Anxiety loses intensity when it is not resisted. Research in acceptance-based approaches consistently finds that the attempt to suppress anxious thoughts tends to increase their frequency. Simply noticing anxiety without engaging with it, gently observing, reduces its grip. You can feel it without becoming it. The sleeping brain does not stop protecting you. Even in deep sleep, the auditory cortex continues monitoring the environment for sounds that matter. Your name, an unusual noise, a voice calling out. You remain. In sleep, capable of responding to real need. The vigil continues even when the watching stops. Warmth signals safety to the mammalian nervous system. Research has found that the experience of physical warmth activates many of the same neural pathways as social warmth and care. Feeling physically held by blankets, by a bed, by the gentle pressure of gravity, soothes the stress system. You are being held right now. The thoughts that arrive at the edge of sleep, the flickering images and half-formed ideas that appear as consciousness softens, are produced by a brain already beginning to let go of linear thinking. They are not problems to be solved. They are the mind loosening its grip on the day. Let them pass, like clouds moving slowly across a dark sky. Chronic anxiety often carries a felt sense of urgency, the conviction that something needs to be done, decided, or resolved right now. Tonight, there is nothing urgent. Whatever needs to be addressed will still be there tomorrow, and you will meet it from a place of greater rest, greater clarity, and greater capacity The body knows how to sleep. It has known since before you were born. Fetuses sleep in the womb. The mechanisms are ancient, conserved across hundreds of millions of years of evolution. You do not need to learn how to sleep. You only need to stop preventing it. In deep sleep, the muscles become voluntarily still. This is called atonia, and it is a feature, not a flaw. In this stillness, repair begins. Growth hormone is released. Tissues are rebuilt. The immune system reviews its records and updates its strategies. Rest is where the body does its most important and most careful work. The anxious mind often believes that vigilance equals safety, that if it stops watching, something will go wrong. Research in threat monitoring suggests the opposite. Sustained hypervigilance exhausts the very resources needed to respond effectively if something actually required attention. Resting is not abandoning your watch. It is maintaining it more wisely. Your brain creates entire worlds while you sleep. Every night, during REM sleep, your mind constructs vivid experiences from memory fragments, emotions, and abstract patterns. Characters appear, conversations unfold, landscapes emerge, all generated from within. These dream worlds feel real in the moment, yet they vanish upon waking, like morning mist. The sleeping brain is not resting, it is creating. Gentle, repetitive sound promotes sleep onset by masking irregular environmental noise and providing a predictable auditory backdrop that signals to the nervous system that nothing unexpected is occurring. Nature sounds have this quality in particular. They are the original ambient environment, the ones the nervous system was calibrated over millions of years to find safe. A protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, supports the growth, maintenance, and resilience of neurons. It plays a meaningful role in learning, memory, and mood regulation. Sleep, movement, and social connection all increase BDNF production, while chronic stress and sleep deprivation tend to suppress it. Tonight, simply by resting, you are doing something kind for the living architecture of your own mind. And so, tonight, simply by being here, you are participating in your own restoration. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, meaning heart, to live with anxiety and continue anyway, to rest when rest feels impossible, to soften when every instinct says to brace. These are quiet acts of courage. The nervous system learns safety not from the absence of challenge, but from repeated experience of returning to calm. Each night of rest is its own evidence. Evidence that you can come back. The space between thoughts is not empty. Research in meditation neuroscience has found that even very brief moments of mental quiet produce distinctive neural signatures, characterized by a subtle shift toward present moment processing. The goal of rest is not to empty the mind, but to allow more space between one thought and the next. You are already moving in that direction. Every time the body breathes out, the heart rate slows slightly. This is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and it is a marker of healthy vagal function. Even now, as you listen, each exhale is a tiny act of calming. The body has been doing this since your first breath. It will continue doing it long into the night. while you sleep, without your direction, without your effort, without your worry. The present moment is the only moment in which rest is possible. The past cannot be changed in sleep. The future cannot be prepared for in sleep. Sleep belongs entirely and absolutely to now. And now, in this room, in this quiet, with this breath, there is nothing that requires your attention. Everything that matters is already held. The boundary between waking and sleeping is not a wall, it is a gradient, a slow dimming of awareness that happens almost without notice when the conditions are right. The conditions are right tonight. Your body temperature is falling. Your cortisol is low. Your muscles have released. The chemistry of rest has been quietly building throughout this entire journey. One breath, one fact, one moment of stillness at a time. You are already most of the way there. Stillness is not passive. For the anxious body, choosing to lie here without acting, without problem solving, without preparing, simply being present in the quiet, is itself a deliberate act of regulation. Research on nervous system recovery consistently finds that the willingness to be still, without agenda, is one of the most powerful tools for restoring the body to its natural baseline. You are, right now, doing something meaningful, even here, even this. Darkness is kind to the anxious brain. In the absence of light, the brain's threat scanning systems settle. The visual cortex, always searching, grows quiet. The ambient noise of perception dims. The world shrinks to the size of your bed, your breath, and the gentle weight of your own body. This is enough, more than enough. It is everything. Research on sleep perception has found that people consistently overestimate how long it takes them to fall asleep. Sometimes by a significant margin. What feels like prolonged wakefulness often contains more sleep than awareness records. The watching mind and the sleeping body are not always in agreement. And often, the body has already begun its work, while the mind is still convinced it is waiting. You may be closer than you know. Your nervous system learned to be anxious, and it can learn something else. Not overnight, not in a single video, not by any act of will alone, but gradually, consistently, through repeated experience of returning to safety, through nights like this one, where the worried mind was offered something gentle and stayed long enough to receive it. Learning is slow, but it is real, and it is already happening. The deepest truth of anxiety is this: the nervous system that has been trying to protect you all this time deserves the same compassion you might offer a child who has been standing guard for too long. It has been working so hard. It has not failed you. It has simply been doing the only job it was ever given. Keeping you here, keeping you alive, making sure you made it to this moment. And here you are. You made it. You can rest now. You are safe. You are enough. You are allowed to sleep. And so our quiet journey through the science of stress and anxiety comes to a gentle close. We traveled from the ancient alarm system of the amygdala, that small almond of alertness that has kept human beings alive for hundreds of thousands of years, to the tender truth of our final fact, that the nervous system working so hard to protect you has always deserved your compassion. We wandered through the chemistry of cortisol and the wisdom of the vagus nerve, through the gut's hidden voice and the brain's nightly repair, through the small and always available miracles of breath, warmth, and rest. Along the way, we discovered that anxiety is not a flaw in the design. It is the design working as intended in a world that has changed faster than the design could follow. And that understanding is, perhaps, the beginning of something quieter. Stress and anxiety remind us that the mind and body are not separate things, managing separate problems. They are one continuous system, responding to life together. Much of this happens in silence, in the quiet chemical conversations between brain and gut, between heartbeat and breath, between memory and sleep. By pausing to notice, we glimpse something extraordinary in what we had dismissed as ordinary suffering. The anxious mind is not broken. It is exquisitely sensitive, and sensitivity, when given the right conditions, becomes something else entirely. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can, as deep as possible. Think about unity, of every anxious thought you have ever had, and every moment of peace that followed. They are both part of the same continuous river. Think about consciousness itself. Yours, mine, everyone listening tonight. All awareness, perhaps, connected in ways we don't yet understand. You are not alone in this. Let your entire being dissolve into the ocean of consciousness, into dreamless rest, into the space before thought. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. This quiet journey through the science of anxiety belongs to you now. A gentle like or share may carry that same stillness to someone else lying awake in the dark right now. Searching for a place like this, one quiet tap, one sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, farther than most journeys take you. You can allow these thoughts of anxiety and calm to fade now. Like the last tension, leaving a muscle you had forgotten was clenched, leaving only the quiet warmth behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if the gentle and patient weight of the earth itself has settled around you and is simply holding you. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way a tide returns to shore, smoothly, inevitably, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your nervous system will still be there, still learning, still healing, still capable of more than you can imagine tonight. Something in you is always becoming, but tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, sleepy soul, and remember, the mind that has been working so hard to protect you has already known how to rest. Good night.